Viola slowly descended the creaky, old stairs of her home. The sound of her children's peaceful breathing filled the air as they slept. Glenn had had a tough day, so she decided not to wake him. However, when she heard a strange noise that didn't seem to be caused by the wind, she felt compelled to investigate. "Is someone there?" she called out, her heart racing with fear. When she finally opened the door, the noise stopped and her heart stopped pounding. The family had buried their beloved dog who had been struck by a car just 14 hours earlier. However, to their shock and amazement, the dog was standing outside their front door the next day. Glenn Maloney had always longed for a family of his own. Unlike many men who desired fast cars, wild nights, and short-lived romances, Glenn's top priority was finding the right person to start a family with. Fortunately, he met Viola Tizzy, the perfect match for him. She was intelligent, humorous, and gorgeous, a combination that Glenn had never encountered before. Glenn was grateful that Viola had chosen him, though he couldn't quite understand why she had. He knew without a doubt that she was the woman he wanted to spend the rest of his life with, but the pace at which their relationship progressed took him by surprise. Despite the suddenness of it all, Glenn was certain that he would eventually settle down with Viola. She was the first person he had ever met who accepted him completely, and he felt confident that she would support him in all of his future endeavors. He knew that one day when the time was right, he would propose. He swore to himself that he would give her the life she dreamed of. However, before he got the chance, they were in for a big surprise. When Viola told Glenn that she was pregnant, he was filled with joy. But when the shock wore off, worries settled in. He always wanted a family, but things weren't meant to move this quickly. He had a plan: marriage, house, dog, baby. They skipped everything on the list, and as time went on, he couldn't shake the feeling of doubt. Megan was born with a full head of hair. She was a strong and happy child. Her happiness rubbed off on both her parents. Never had Glenn felt so much love for a human being. He finally understood the meaning of unconditional love. He was sure that he was destined to be a father, but deep down he knew something was missing. Glenn didn't understand what the problem was. He had a beautiful partner and a healthy child. To have one of those in life is considered a miracle, and he had both. He managed to work hard enough to find him a farmhouse on the outskirts of town with plenty of land for Megan to eventually run around. And when her first Christmas arrived, Viola gave him a gift he never expected. Glenn told Viola he didn't want anything for Christmas. All he wanted was to see his little girl open her presents. So when he found a big box with his name on it, he was skeptical. As Glenn tore the bow off an unwrapped cardboard box, he was shocked to see two big eyes staring back at him. He couldn't believe it. What was this? The small Russell Terrier was smaller than Megan that Christmas, and the family named him Muggsy. They watched him grow and mature alongside their little girl. As the months passed, Muggsy quickly caught up in size. It was then that Glenn finally realized what had been missing from his life. He now had the perfect family, but he had forgotten how much work went into raising children. Over the next 4 years, they watched Muggsy and Megan grow up together. He was there for Viola's second pregnancy, and he met baby Kevin before Megan even got the chance. As time went by, Megan and Kevin outgrew the little terrier. Glenn always wished he could pause life. He wanted his 3 babies to stay young forever. He quickly realized that time would never wait for him or anyone else.
Also, if you've not done so already, please subscribe to our channel and click that notification bell to get inspired by these animal stories every day. Now, back to the story.
Megan was 4 when Glenn's life was turned upside down. He heard the brakes screech outside. Megan and Kevin were sitting happily at the kitchen table, building a gingerbread house. Tinsel and baubles decorated their home. He immediately ran to the window and noticed Muggsy lying on the road. He raced straight to his side. Glenn couldn't believe his eyes. "I picked Muggsy up, but he died in my arms." Glenn couldn't conceal his heartbreak. His companion wasn't breathing. Then he discovered Muggsy had no heartbeat. Glenn cried as he rushed to get their beloved animal from his children's sight. When Viola returned home, they dug a grave in the garden and gave him a proper send-off. Little did he know fate had a different plan. That morning at 3 a.m. Viola was woken by a constant rattling on their front door. Was it a burglar? She grabbed Kevin's baseball bat and crept down the stairs. She looked through the window. but couldn't see anyone. Why were Nick knockers out so early in the morning? But when she opened the door, she screamed. Glenn raced down the stairs when he heard Viola's cries, but when he reached the bottom, he saw her hunched over a dirt-covered Mugsy. Was he dreaming? Mugsy was covered in dirt and his eyes were bloodshot, he later explains. One look into those eyes, and I knew it was him. What was going on? Mugsy, tail wouldn't stop wagging as they drove him to the vets the next morning. Turns out Mugsy had been knocked out from the hit and run. After the collision, his heartbeat had slowed to an almost undetectable pace, making it appear he was dead. But Glenn had buried him deep. How did he manage to get out? Russell Terriers was bred to hunt foxes. The small canines could track, locate, and burrow deep to find vermin. Naturally, Mugsy was born a good digger. So, when he woke up in a dark space surrounded by dirt, his instincts kicked in. Instead of digging down, he dug up. Had this ever happened before? Glenn was happy his family was finally back together. Although his children were young, they cried with joy when Mugsy returned. Viola couldn't believe their luck, or was it more than just pure luck? The kids spoiled Mugsy with hugs and kisses. He was even treated to a new toy. But the story didn't end there. Word of Mugsy's story quickly spread around the town, and eventually papers and magazines across the country were even talking about Mugsy the dog. The tale of Mugsy's miraculous recovery made headlines and even caught the attention of Oprah, one of the most well-known talk show hosts in America. Oprah, who was a huge dog lover, was fascinated by the story and invited Glenn and Viola to appear on her show. When asked about the events of that night, Viola explained, I guess when he woke up in that hole, he just thought it was another old hole, and he dug his way out not knowing it was supposed to be his grave. The world was in disbelief at their story, and Oprah was eager to hear more. Glenn and his family never expected their story to reach such a wide audience. To them, the events of that fateful night were nothing short of a Christmas miracle. Despite what the veterinarians said, Glenn remained convinced that Mugsy had stopped breathing before being buried. He believed that Mugsy simply wasn't ready to say goodbye to his family, which was why he was able to come back to life 6 hours later, full of vitality. Many people wondered if there was more to Mugsy's resurrection than just a medical explanation. As news of his miraculous recovery spread across the globe, people were amazed by his story. Some attributed it to the power of love, while others saw it as a Christmas miracle. Regardless of the reason, Glenn, Viola, Megan, and Kevin were thrilled to have their family reunited. They showered Mugsy with extra gifts that year, but they couldn't help wondering how long their good fortune would last.